In this video, I am joined by the family man, George. Today, we are talking the indie refurb, magic happens, and much, much more on this episode of OG 55. Welcome aboard.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
to all who come to this happy place.
Welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Welcome aboard, everybody, to this episode of OG 55. I am joined by Disney Family Man 23, my brother, my family, my collaborator. George, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Glad to be back on and talking in honor of our other brother, Mr. Vash Sky, who unfortunately can't join us for these robust discussions, if you will.
Yes, no, absolutely. We love Vash, but he will be joining us tomorrow night live show. Big live show tomorrow night at 6:45 p.m. California time. Everybody watching, if you can, make sure to check us out tomorrow. It's going to be a great, great show tomorrow. We're talking Pandora at Disneyland, Zootopia, possibly coming Animal Kingdom, just a bunch of stuff. So be a great time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Join the party, folks. It's going to be great.
Exactly. Crack a few beers open, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So, but in terms of today's show, we're going to talk about this indie refurb. Okay, this is kind of interesting stuff going on here. I have Blog Mickey, who is saying here that Indiana Jones Adventure scheduled to reopen March 26th at Disneyland. Now, this is kind of interesting because it says Indiana Jones Adventure, which is currently closed at Disneyland for refurb, now has a reopening date. According to the internal, and that's important here, internal Disneyland calendar, the status of Indiana Jones Adventure changes from refurbishment to operating beginning March 26. Attraction operation times are not listed on the Disneyland website, but if the internal calendar is to be believed, Indy will reopen from refurbishment on the 26th. Now, our friend Theme Park Wizard is saying that when you check the calendar, it's still showing it's down for refurb on that day. So that's kind of interesting that internally it's showing it's coming back up, but I guess publicly they're not acknowledging that yet. So it's kind of a weird thing, right, George?
Yeah, especially for this attraction, because there's so much relying on this for several reasons, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But could that possibly mean that it'll be in operation as far as running it through like a test run? Not for the generalized public, but maybe like whatever they had added to maybe see if it's functioning properly. And that's why it's internal.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah, maybe this is some sort of like cast sort of test and adjust kind of thing, right? Where they're kind of working all the kinks out and it's not ready for public. Yeah, that's a good possibility. That's a good possibility. Now, if that is the case, then we can probably expect it to open soon thereafter, maybe early April or something, you know?
Yeah, and what I was saying before was because there's a lot like relying on this attraction in the sense because if March 26th or later on is going to be around the time frame that Indiana Jones reopens, because I'm for sure that they're going to want to have this kind of tying into as a promotional thing for when the film is open in theaters. I believe June 30th.
Yes,
is when the film opens. So they're going to want to have this attraction kind of already operational, you know, for the park guests and what have you. But it's also interesting because a lot of speculation is depicting of then what is going to be the time frame for Splash Mountain to be closing down. So now that we kind of have a roundabout opening time for Indiana Jones, is this now going to be the time frame when Splash Mountain goes down? And I know Braden from Mickey Views that he had some reliable sources. He's not 100% sure, but from what he was told is the reason why Disneyland's version of Splash Mountain was delayed in the closing as opposite of Walt Disney World is because supposedly there's going to be different scenes or a different way of how it's going to be approached with the storyline for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. And I guess I can kind of understand that, because if you look at both structures of Splash Mountain at Disneyland and at Walt Disney World, the layouts are completely different. So they have to kind of maneuver the storyline so it will already fit into the already built show building.
Yeah, no, exactly. We have different versions of these attractions both in Anaheim and Orlando, so they're going to have to sort of address things a little differently. So what Braden from Mickey Views is saying absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. And we've been hearing rumors that Splash will go down in May at Disneyland. So this sort of tracks, like if Indy's reopening like end of March, early April, give it a couple weeks and then Splash goes down. That kind of makes sense here, you know?
Yeah. So I'm putting my bets that if this is strictly internally, but it's not on the guest calendar yet, in my opinion, I would think that this is like a test run for operational. Because depending on what they did within the ride itself, especially the speculation of adding a different kind of snake to the scene and everything. So I'm for sure that they're going to want to run through everything to make sure it's all ready for guest operations. Yeah.
Now, kind of speaking of the snake, we saw that kind of sitting backstage. Looks fantastic. Looks actually much more realistic than the one that was currently in there.
Yes.
The one that was currently in there always looked a little cartoony to me. You know? I didn't love it. This one has a lot more darker tones. Looks a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, I think reflecting off the dark light and giving it like that kind of like bioluminescent look, it made it look too unrealistic, unappealing.
Yeah, and this one, and this one that we're seeing backstage. I mean, granted, this is without show lighting and what have you, but it was a lot of browns and kind of like darker tones. It looks much better. But that brings me to my next question, George. Is that okay? So we know we're going to get a new snake. What other changes do you think we might get, or what changes do you want us to get in this attraction? What do you want to see happen out of this pretty lengthy refurb?
Well, I do know a lot of people kind of go back and forth of thinking, okay, they redid the whole entire attraction to the Dial of Destiny, and it's going to be a big marketing shamble for the movie and everything. That to me, I don't feel like that's the case. I don't really think that they kind of set this for specifically the Dial of Destiny. I do think that maybe they incorporated maybe some Easter eggs, kind of maybe like incorporate like for the film. So you might see some hidden props or something that relates to the movie. Me personally, I would love to see more special effects, especially in the where they show like the critters and the bugs crawling. Like that is a little bit cringe-worthy to me. That is like early 90s. I would love to see like an up-to-date, more realistic tone, as if, you know, the bugs are actually there, and some of the special effects like with the spears and everything. I would love to see more of that. And I know this is completely far-fetched, but I would absolutely love to see Tony Baxter's original concept with the what was it? The
combination of like the Jungle Cruise.
Yes.
And and for those of you at home that are not familiar with what he's referring to, there was original plan for the Indiana Jones Adventure where the Indy show building would house not only just Indy, but the Jungle Cruise would go through this building as well as a brand new mine roller coaster. Right? It is awesome. And actually, I even think that the Disneyland Railroad went through it as well in the art. So it housed all these different attractions that were going through the same show building. So depending on what ride you were on, whether a Jungle Cruise, Indy, the Railroad, the mine cart, you were getting a different perspective on this amazing show building. Awesome idea. Awesome concept. I agree with you, George. I would love them to do that. I think the reason why they chose not to was because if one of these rides go down, then they have to shut them all down. And it led to logistical problems. But man, in a perfect world, that would be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that I really appreciate about Disneyland is I love the intertwining of attractions, such as Casey Jr. Circus Train and the Storybook Land Canals. They're two separate attractions, but you can, as you had mentioned, OG, that you can get a different perception that if you're on Casey Jr., you can kind of see the park at a different angle and watch the guests on the Storybook Land canals. Or if you're on the Storybook Land canals, you can see the people enjoying Casey Jr. And I think that combination of the Jungle Cruise with Indiana Jones would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect. Now, one room in particular that's always kind of bugged me is the rat room. It was always very like, I don't know. It always felt like just almost like borderline unthemed. It's just a big black box room with kind of a janky looking like projector with the rat. They could do better than that. I hope now with all the new projection mapping technology that we have, I mean, we're seeing amazing stuff happening over there with the castle, with Wondrous Journeys, right? I would love to see them just kind of reimagine that whole rat room into something completely different. You can still use projections and what have you, but just make it a little more impressive. That was always the weakest link for me when it came to Indiana Jones. You have these amazingly detailed, kind of elaborate like scenes, and you get into that room, and it's like, what is this? You know?
Well, and it's like, if you can do it with the Fantasyland dark rides, which are very impressive of what they did to those, with Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan's Flight, and now Snow White's Enchanted Wish. I mean, if they can incorporate that kind of technology just with a simple Fantasyland dark ride, can you imagine the possibilities that they could add to Indiana Jones just to hyphen it up a bit?
Oh, it'd be awesome. It would be awesome. Now, I'm in agreement with you, George. I don't think they're going to go like full bore, like promotional synergy with the new Dial of Destiny film. But I do think, like what you touched upon, I do think there might be some Easter eggs in there. Like maybe the Dial of Destiny will be put in, like the prop or whatever, right? Will be placed in the attraction or something like that. I think that's pretty likely to have some sort of tie-in. But the people that are worried, like, oh, we're going to get like a full blown, like Phoebe Waller-Bridge animatronic in the attraction.
Yeah.
None of that is happening. I don't think, right? Can we kind of agree on that?
Yeah. I think honestly, the biggest change as far as adding an animatronic would probably be the snake. That'd probably be like the biggest add on as far as an audio animatronic. But that's where it always kind of felt like for Indiana Jones, where they're borderlining on two different types of technology. Like when you start out and you gaze into the eyes of Mara and you got that really crisp projection mapping, and it's like perfect. And then as you go into the room, as you mentioned, the rat room, and it's like you have these two different types of technology. It's like you got to mesh them well, and you got to kind of like catch the rest of the ride up for what they did in the very beginning.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So this is going to be very, very interesting. This is a lengthy refurb, pretty lengthy.
When did it go down?
Oh, it went down like a few weeks ago, I think. And it's not coming back up till March 26th, which is another 6 weeks. So
okay, yeah, so several months it was done, like altogether, I would think.
Yeah, so it's been a little while. So I'm very curious. Now, also keep in mind too that this refurb, from what we're hearing, was actually planned for around 2020 when the pandy hit. So this has been kind of in the works for a while, you know, and I think that's also why I don't really think that we're going to get a lot of Dial of Destiny stuff, because this was just that 2020 refurb pushed out till now. So
and in a way, I wouldn't want too much Dial of Destiny. Like when you kind of focus on just one film in the franchise, it cheapens it a bit. That's what I loved about this attraction, is because it's not necessarily set to one particular film. You have different aspects of it, like you have the giant boulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you kind of have like that creepy, eerie feeling like the Temple of Doom. So it's like they kind of took elements of different films and meshed it into one attraction. So that's kind of how my approach is that they would do for the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see. I'm excited. This attraction has been having some issues for a long, long time. It's good to see this crown jewel of Disneyland get the TLC that it desperately needs. I think it's gonna come back looking fantastic. I really do. So we'll see. I have high hopes for it. I just hope we get not just a sprucing up of what's there. I hope we do get some new stuff too to kind of sink our teeth into. But we'll see. Soon enough, end of March.
Yep.
End of March. But we do have more Disneyland news, which is Mickey's Toontown reopening delayed at the Disneyland Resort. And so I guess it's now opening March 19th, which isn't that much of a delay. I mean, I think the original date was like March 8th or something, right?
Yes.
March 8th.
Yeah, March 8th.
Yeah. So this is like vastly different. But supposedly the big rainstorms that we had a few weeks ago, which, by the way, they were a doozy. We haven't gotten rain in like 10 years. And then all of a sudden we got all the rain in like 3 weeks. It was just out of control. But I guess those series of storms delayed Toontown. Again, it happens. I mean, this is stuff that's just normal, par for the course. I'm not really too concerned or bugged about it. But what are your overall thoughts, George?
Yeah, I think this is something obviously that's out of Disney's hands. There's no control over Mother Nature. You just kind of grit and bear for what you have to do. And sometimes it's the unlikely event that you have to push back something. And for Toontown, this is the case. And honestly, for the sake of sticking up for Disney, I would rather them take their time with something than hurry up and rush it and put out a bad looking project. So if it's like slow and steady wins the race. And I am one that if they're going to do it, do it right. And I have to say, however much has already opened with Toontown, which I got to experience it, I cannot wait to see it completed entirely, because especially looking at this at night with all the lights and the backdrop and everything, it is perfect. I mean, Disney knocked it out of the park with this one.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. And I agree with you. I've never been one of those people, whether it be theme parks or even movies. A lot of fans get like really like mentally married to like opening dates, even with film. Oh, a film is delayed. I'm like, I don't really care. It's gonna come out eventually. When it comes out, I'll see it. When it opens, I'll go to it. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't really stress out about that stuff. And we've seen what happens when you rush things out. Like, look, hey, as cool as Nintendo World is, there's a lot of problems with that, because I think they soft opened that and had all those previews, I think, before they were really ready. Mm-hmm. And I think that it was kind of a bad look. It kind of was. So I'd rather them, if they need the extra time, whatever it is, take the extra time, get it done right. So when it opens up, everything looks perfect,
Yeah. And I do feel for the people that have maybe a vacation or maybe a weekend, where they kind of had it planned for when Toontown reopens entirely. Because there are some people that were disappointed because they booked their Disneyland vacation around that time, and now it's possibly too far along for them to change it. Right. I do feel for those people in the sense, but I mean, as I said, it's out of Disney's control. But I do feel bad for the people that would either have to rebook or wait for another trip, to be able to see Toontown entirely. But I will say, though, if you can get out there beforehand, at least you can have a chance to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, because even if you don't get a chance to see Toontown for its grand opening fully completed, if you have the opportunity to get on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, I strongly recommend you do so, because I've been on both, as I mentioned before in previous videos. This version at Disneyland knocks Walt Disney World's ass. And it's like it's pretty much the same attraction. There are some things that need to be implemented within the ride itself, but it's an easy fix. But the queue is amazing. It fits perfectly well within the attraction, and the attraction fits perfectly within this land. Yes. So, I mean, there's nothing too much of a negativity that I can give about it.
And we actually had a special treat waiting in the queue. You and I and Vash Sky. Yes. We were actually right behind Mr. Provost Park Pass, Chris, who is incredible. We had a blast hanging out with him in the queue, talking, nerding out about parks and what have you. He is a really, really, really nice guy. We had a lot of fun that day.
Yeah, we did. And it was very nice to kind of get his ideals like on it, and he has a lot of interesting takes on just like the different styles of this, of the attraction of Mickey himself and the characters, as opposite to the traditionalized look of Mickey and his friends. But hopefully within time he'll be able to come join us on OG 55 and we get to pick his brain a little bit more.
Yes, hopefully so. Hopefully so. I want to actually ask you, George, because this has been a topic a little bit with the fandom, with the different style Mickey in Toontown. Because when Toontown opened in the 90s, it was very much a unified kind of style, right? Everything was that same Disney style. But now we're getting a totally different kind of style Mickey in the land. Now, I like that. And actually, I wish Disney would lean into that chaos a little more even. Because if you have a Toontown, right? Well, cartoons are all different styles. Like you're never going to have it. When you have a Toontown, you're not going to have all one style animation. You're going to have like the old school kind of cartoons. You're going to have like Hanna-Barbera style. You're going to have more detailed like Beauty and the Beast, what have you. I want Toontown to go all in on that and have just all these crazy different styles, a real big variety across the entire land, and really make it a land where cartoons live. I think that would be a much more realistic approach to it. And Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is sort of a start to that. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the goal going forward. Probably not. But I think that would be kind of cool to incorporate more variety of styles into a Toontown. But what are your thoughts on that? Would you be open to something like that? Or
yeah, I think that's the direction that they really are taking, and I hope they stick with it, because if you look at Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, that has the type of animation that was used in the 80s for, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And now you have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway with the newer type version of the characters. And then you kind of move over to where Gadget's Go Coaster is. And right now we don't know really too much, any updates, but that could either be of the 90s for like the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, or they may update it to incorporate the newer style of Chip and Dale from the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie that's on Disney Plus. And then you have the Mickey and Minnie that we kind of all grown to know as that typical theme park Mickey and Minnie, where you go visit them in their houses. So I love how there's different variations of the same characters all built in with one land, because as you said, animation is not just set on one particular bar tone. It can go all over the place. And as far as Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, I would prefer it to be the newer style, only because the type of ride that it is, it has that wacky, zany, kind of fun-filled feel to it, where it bumps you and it jerks you around.
Right.
You wouldn't get that with the typical Mickey and Minnie meet and greet kind of characters, so it fits well with the type of ride system that you're going through in the attraction. But yes, I do agree with you. I love the different styles of animation, and honestly, I would even kick it up a notch, and I'm going to go balls to the wall here, and I would love to see an area of Toontown that's just all black and white.
Yes. Oh, that would be incredible. Like a little, even if it's just like a little alleyway that's black and white, or like a little corner, a little nook in Toontown, just black and white. Maybe even add a little Oswald in there or something.
Yes,
I mean, that would be fantastic.
Black and white Oswald, that would be, oh man, that'd be perfect. And then maybe a little bit of Steamboat Willie, Plain Crazy, like that, oh man, that traditional black and white. And then as you had mentioned, if they get in that ink and paint, sort of like kind of like bar type of, oh man, that would be, oh man, that'd be perfect.
That would be great. And I know Toontown, like they're kind of like trying to make it like the I hate to say kiddie land, because everyone can enjoy. I love Toontown too, but like they are trying to go for that, like that young kid kind of like kind of angle. But God, an ink and paint bar would be
in the area of Roger Rabbit, because it kind of has that edgy type of Who Framed Roger Rabbit feel.
It would be so good. I mean, you can have an animatronic octopus behind the bar, just like in the movie.
That'd be great.
The drink potential, I mean, the specialty drinks and the cocktails you can do with that theme is like unlimited. I mean, it would just be, you could literally have a drink. Remember in the movie, Eddie Valiant, he orders a scotch on the rocks. and it's
Yes.
literally there's
Like
rocks in it.
Yes.
You could have like plastic rocks in the drink or whatever, and have all these kind of funny gags. Disney, if you're watching this, Disney, you will make a mint on that idea. Do it.
Yes, I agree. That would be perfect.
That would be fantastic. Now, I wanted to ask you, George, because there's been a lot of talk. I know I've speculated with Dre on this Vast Sky quite a bit, actually, on the possibility of having a connector from Toontown to Galaxy's Edge. They did take down the Chippendale Treehouse, which that would be, I mean, if you're going to build a tunnel, it would be right there because Galaxy's Edge is right on the other side of that wall. Do you think we're going to see that, or is that something that maybe might come later, or...
I actually had this conversation with Mr. Vash Sky as well. And
on the phone?
On the phone. Go figure. I swear, honestly, I'm making both of us shirts, and you're going to be on one side. I'm going to be on the other. We're going to put Dre in the middle, and there's going to be arrow pointing both ways. I spoke to him on the phone.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Absolutely. But yeah, I totally agree with that notion. I feel that it would help with the guest flow, especially once Toontown is fully opened as a whole. And again, possibly not even just Splash Mountain, but all of Critter Country may go down. And that's a whole another tire land that's going to be completely blocked off that is also adjacent to Galaxy's Edge. And then you would have only one way in and one way out either way. So
Right.
and they already kind of have that bottleneck areas between Fantasyland, where Alice in Wonderland is, that leads up to It's a Small World, and then New Orleans Square by Pirates that leads off into Adventureland. Like that gets so congested there that I feel like to have areas blocked off where you have to literally go one way or the other, I feel that could alleviate some of that congestion of guest flow if they would connect Toontown with Galaxy's Edge. And it really honestly wouldn't be too much of a trouble, since they already kind of have that area kind of down. It would be nice if they actually opened the land with that. And
Right.
and if they don't, I mean, again, it's an easy fix. They could always just add a walkway right to there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about the possibility of Critter Country going completely down because they're retheming Splash Mountain to Tiana. That's a very real possibility that will be down, and then you're gonna need that's gonna be a huge bottleneck. You're gonna need to alleviate that somehow. What better way to do that than connect Toontown and Galaxy's Edge? That's a very, very good point, George. Very, very good point. Yep, very good point. So yeah, overall, this little delay, not a big deal. It's going to open when it opens, and it's all good. I'm very curious, though, how the rest of Toontown is going to look. The downtown area around Runaway Railway looks fantastic. We saw it together, and it looked beautiful. The hills look amazing. It looks great. Now let's see if that translates into the other half of the land with the houses. I'm really curious because they're completely reimagining Donald's Boat. And they're completely reimagining Goofy's house. So how are those going to turn out? That's interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of like the if factor. And now, did they even mention anything with Mickey and Minnie's houses, or are they staying in their original state?
From what I understand, those are staying in their original state. I think it's just Donald and Goofy that are getting, And those were really the problem areas of that area. Like, Goofy's house was the bounce house for a while, and then I don't even know what happened after. They stopped doing the bouncy house, and it became something else. I don't know. It's always been kind of weird with that one. Donald's Boat was kind of underwhelming, and you got the hype train behind you.
Got the hype train coming. Yep, it's coming around.
Yeah. But it's just I don't know. Well, I hope they whatever they do with these two houses, they kind of give it some life again. Neither one of those houses were really that strong. I don't know. So we'll see how that pans out. And
then we'll also see as far as the rest of for like Centennial Park, that because a lot of we've discussed this actually while we were there, along with a fellow friend and supporter of the channel, Mr. Marty Snyder, who we bumped into. As far as like the green fake grass area for like the
Right.
stroller parking, which I won't really have too much of a problem with as long as there's more of that grassy area for kids to run around and play with on the opposite side of Toontown.
Right. No, exactly. And I'm very curious about that Walt Disney. I think they're calling it the Walt Disney Wishing Tree, which is going to be interesting because they got rid of the Chippendale treehouse. I wonder if they're going to take that treehouse and kind of repurpose it into this new wishing tree. I don't know. Keep an eye out with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing something with that, and that's the tree we're getting for the new tree, right?
Right.
And then one more thing before we move on to Magic Happens. We lost two fountains. We lost the Roger fountain, which is really sad. I love Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
That was a real bummer to lose that fountain. And then we lost the Mickey fountain over in the residential area of the land. But we're gaining, I guess, another Mickey and Minnie fountain where the old Jolly Trolley station used to be. What are your thoughts on that? Is it kind of...
I mean, it was a bummer for me, especially with Roger Rabbit's, because that fountain was just so unique and different, and you couldn't see anything like that in any other kind of land, especially because Roger Rabbit kind of got depleted from Walt Disney World, especially at Hollywood Studios, because that's where he heavily was supposed to be, because they were supposed to have a Baby Herman buggy attraction at Hollywood Studios, and that's where you could actually have a meet and greet with Roger, but that all kind of went down. So Roger Rabbit's home is basically in Disneyland, in Toontown. And honestly, for him having his attraction, they and keeping the attraction to honor him, and I know that there may be some kind of licensing issues with Spielberg and what have you, but I would love to see Roger back into the park, meeting guests and meeting the kids in Toontown. That would be great. But to answer your question, as far as the fountains go, I don't have a problem with them as long as they're done well, as long as it fits well with it's cohesive within the rest of Toontown. Because as I said, if you get rid of Roger Rabbit's fountain, you got to make up for it and have some kick-ass fountains.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's always sad losing anything Roger, because Roger is a very rare thing. Yeah. I mean, very rare at Walt Disney World, like non-existent. But even just across the Walt Disney Company, you don't see a lot of Roger Rabbit, and to lose that, even just a little thing like a fountain is upsetting, because Roger Rabbit's a great character. I mean, and that was a great movie, and I just wish it got a little more love. But like you said, there's a lot of kind of legal complications with that, because it's not just a Disney property, it's Spielberg as well. And unfortunately, that was kind of the Achilles heel of the whole franchise, is all those legal dealings sort of created such a perfect storm for the character to just become more and more irrelevant, because they weren't really free to use it like they were, like, say, Mickey or anything like that. So yeah, it's unfortunate, because he's a fantastic character and it's a great movie.
Oh, I love a Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, you could do something similar like how they did with Chippendale Rescue Rangers, which I think that's as close as they're going to get to another type of Who Framed. But I mean, that is just a classic entirely. You'll never get Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on the same screen ever again. You will never get Donald Duck and Daffy Duck duking it out over piano playing ever again. Like, that is a one and done film that you would never ever get again.
And that movie was really risque, even for its day, and especially now. I mean, yeah, you're never going to get something that edgy. And the thing that was brilliant about Roger Rabbit too was how it was meta, for sure. It was a meta movie for sure. Very self-aware, right? Yes. But it was done in a way that was very timeless also. You watch Roger Rabbit and it's not cringy at all today. Whereas you watch a lot of other meta material, like Shrek or something, it doesn't age quite as well. Yes. So they did a really good job with that film in creating the self-awareness, but yet at the same time, it's aged perfectly. And that's not easy. That's not easy.
Yes. I mean, where could you ever find another movie really quick that you could have one Toon sticking his hand down another Toon's cleavage, pulling out a trap, and it's like nice booby trap. I mean, come on, like where can you
Come
ever
on.
get that again?
It's so good. It's so good. It was so not PC at all.
Yeah,
And they didn't care, and they still did it, and it was just fantastic. Love that movie. Love it. So we got one final story today. Magic Happens Parade returns to Disneyland in 2023. The magic is returning to the Disneyland Resort in February 2023. Discover the magic that's coming to Disneyland during the Magic Happens Parade. So this is very interesting. It's actually coming back on February 24th. Now, this parade premiered like right before the pandy. So it didn't last very long before the parks were shut down for 400 and something days because of the lockdowns. It's finally coming back. Now, this is not one of my favorite parades at all. I think that the music in and of itself is good. And I think the floats, the parade floats in and of itself is good. My issue with this parade has always been that they don't go together, right? Because you kind of have this, right? You have this hip and kind of trendy sort of soundtrack. And then you got these very whimsical, kind of classical Disney sort of floats. It just doesn't work. You got to pick a lane. You're either going to go whimsy or you're going to go hip and edgy. You can't do both. And it just doesn't work for me. But I will concede this parade has a huge fan base. A lot of people loved it. I do like the fact that there are some characters in there that you don't see very often that don't get a lot of love, like Merlin and Sword in the Stone. I think that was very cool, but just not my favorite parade. But hey, you know what? I am happy for the people that love the parade, and I'm just happy overall that we're finally getting a parade back. But what are your thoughts, George?
Yeah, I think just the whole notion that a day parade is coming back to Disneyland Park is just enough to say, you know what? It needs to be, after having Sensational for how many years and then integrating it to Magic Happens and only having it for a short period of time, which I think it was only a couple weeks before all the craziness went down. So I think it'll give people enough time to actually take in for what it is. I have watched it on YouTube. I've never seen it in person yet, but I will eventually. But I agree with you. I feel like the parade is kind of lost in translation. I feel like the music doesn't fit well with the characters and the floats and vice versa. The soundtrack is really good. It was done by Todrick Hall, who collaborated with Disney on this. But I feel like that would be more of a DCA type of parade, sort of like how they did with Paint the Night. Like when they brought Paint the Night over to Disneyland, it was great. And I actually had the opportunity to see Paint the Night at Disneyland and at DCA. But I felt that Paint the Night fit perfectly at DCA rather than Disneyland. So the floats fit well at Disneyland Park, but the music fits better at DCA.
Right. No, 100%. And you're absolutely right about Paint the Night, because Paint the Night leans heavily into kind of like hip music, but it works though with those floats. It just matches it perfectly. And then it also leans very heavily into Pixar, which is much more of a DCA kind of thing. That is definitely a DCA parade. I mean, especially when you have the huge Mack truck. Come on. Oh, absolutely. You can't get more DCA than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they did say by our reliable source.
Yes. Who we call Dude Trust Me Bro.
Dude Trust Me Bro. Yes. That they still have the Paint the Night floats stored back there, and there's a possibility at some point or another it may or may not come back or be utilized in another format. So I'm very curious to see, about that. And if it does, as I said, it would be great to have a day parade at Disneyland and a night parade at a day parade at Disneyland and a night parade at DCA. That'd be freaking awesome.
That would be awesome. But you know what? We got to be fair to Florida, because I do think it is an absolute sin and I don't know really what the deal is with this. I don't know if it's like Disney World management or what have you, but we got to get you guys a nighttime parade. I mean, I don't know what is going on with that.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. Like we had Spectro Magic for the longest time. We had a day parade and a night parade for
Wow.
like we had the Share a Dream Come True parade, and then Spectro Magic, and then sometimes we would have, on rare occasions, we would have the Main Street Electrical Parade come for a limited time. But now we do have the day parade now that usually travels through Frontierland all the way through to Main Street. But yeah, we got to get back a nighttime parade. I mean, and I don't know if it has to do with the timing for for the fireworks. Like, I don't know, but I mean, it was never a problem before. So anytime that I
Right.
say that, it's like, well, why is it? I don't know if it's cost cuts. I don't know if it's lack of not having enough cast members or what have you. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe in time, maybe they're saving Paint the Night for Walt Disney World.
Possible. No, that's possible. Maybe that's where it's going to go. They just need it out there. You guys need it out there. It's been far too long, and I'm sure somebody will get the electrical parade again, whether it's Disneyland or maybe Walt Disney World. It seems like that parade never really fully ever really retires, which I'm okay with that. I love the electrical parade. I know a lot of fans talk a lot of shit about the electrical parade. I actually love it, but it has a personal connection to me. My late grandmother loved that parade. It just reminds me of her so much. So it can come back anytime. OG loves that parade.
Yes, and it's a great parade, honestly. And me personally, I think that if they're just going to do that, why torture the guests of saying, oh, for a limited time? And I know that they do that probably for marketing techniques, so they can get the merch out. And it's like, just keep it as a steady nighttime parade. Just keep it a run. You have Magic Happens in the day and Main Street Electrical at night. It's like, come on.
Come on, easy peasy, Now, I want real quick before we close it out, and this is unrelated to the park side of things, but it was released today. This Disney 100 commercial for the Super Bowl. Now, are you a big football fan, George, or?
I'm like mid. Like I do follow it, but I mean, like, I'm not like heavily into it as much as our brother Mr. Vash Sky.
Yes, he loves it. He loves it. And I am not into it at all. I don't even know who's playing today. So that'll tell you where I stand with football or sports in general. I really don't watch sports. But what did you think about that Disney 100 ad for the Super Bowl?
Well, first thing I have to say is kudos to Mr. Bob Iger, because that was a perfect way of promoting this than to have something released during the Super Bowl. I mean, like, that's just typical Bob Iger, so, but as far as the actual ad itself, I couldn't be more than happy of what they did. I loved how they incorporated Walt, and they incorporated him in multiple ways. Yes. They had photographs of him. They had audio of him that just kind of like set the whole tone of what this Disney 100 was all about. And they showed different time frames of animation. Like, you had the old classic golden age Hollywood animation with Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and then you have the newer, up-to-date animation with Frozen, Zootopia, Moana. So I loved how they just meshed everything together, that I could actually feel of how they kicked this off on January 27th with the Disney 100. I'm very excited to see how the company's going to move forward just with this promotion alone, because they are doing it right. This is what should have been for Walt Disney World's 50th. And I do know, to Disney's credit, that they did the best that they could due to the lack of circumstances of what happened. But in compared of apples and oranges, I mean, Walt Disney World's 50th was basically the pit and seeds of the fruit, so to speak, compared to this.
It was a dud. They're hitting a lot of the right marks with this Disney 100. I know that we had issues with the banners and all that at Disneyland, but that's getting fixed. But overall, the tone has been spot on. I love that Wondrous Journeys fireworks show. I love how they're incorporating music from around the world, like including Epcot in the Esplanade at Disneyland. I think that was fantastic. I love little ads like this for the Super Bowl where they're really celebrating the whole company. Like you said, they have all the eras of animation. They have, even recent stuff that they purchased, like Fox with the Avatar representation in there. They got Star Wars, they got Marvel. It's a real true celebration of 100 years of this amazing company. And the cool thing too is, I like to pick apart some of this stuff, right? Because for example, I'm gonna set the table just a little bit. D23 Expo, they were heavily featuring Oswald on all the big banners outside the convention center. You saw Oswald, right? And I was talking to our friend Alia, and I'm like, why are they featuring Oswald so much? Are they going to announce an Oswald TV show? And they never did anything. No, there was never any announcement for Oswald at that expo, right?
Correct.
Then Disney 100 comes around and you're starting to see it. The merch is like, they're pumping Oswald out there like crazy. And I can't buy it up fast enough. I love Oswald, right? But that D23 Expo with the big Oswald everywhere was a sign of things to come. They knew the 100th is coming and he was going to be a big focus of that 100th. Now, why I say that is in this commercial for the Super Bowl, they focus heavily on Rey from Star Wars. Now, the sequel trilogy is long over. I mean, 2019, it's been like almost 4 years now behind us. Really interesting how they're focusing so much on Rey and BB-8 and what have you. And now this is very interesting because we've heard rumors and actually I think even confirmation that Daisy Ridley has been seen at Lucasfilm recently. So what's going on with that? Is there a maybe a show, a Disney Plus series in the works regarding Rey? Is it a movie? I don't know. Could it be nothing? I could maybe. I just find that a little strange how much they were sort of focusing on her in this whole thing. I think that was kind of telling a little bit.
I think so, because if nothing else, I would have banked them showing more of the Mandalorian.
Right. And they didn't really focus on that, right?
And it was like it was Rey.
Yeah,
it was Rey.
Rey and BB-8. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's an agenda, And
Disney doesn't do anything out of just for kicks,
Right. I don't think this is anything like, I don't think there's any kind of culture war agenda with this ad at all. I think it's just like you said, George. I think that they are planning something with that character. We've heard rumors that they're doing something with her. And she's visited Lucasfilm recently. I think that's really what it is. I think that they know something coming down the pike, and they're kind of letting us know, hey, keep an eye on it. Because look, the sequel trilogy is like 4 years behind us. Mando is the next thing. I mean, season 3 of Mando's coming up. You'd think you'd have a lot of Grogu in there, and you don't.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like they would have heavily put that in for the Disney 100. But yeah, just to kind of showcase Rey. And then, as you had mentioned, she's up at Lucasfilm. Coincidence? I think not.
I think not. And another thing I really love about this ad as well was how they have the footage from all the movies and Marvel, Star Wars, animation, all that good stuff. But then they incorporated like sort of fan reactions to these movies, like the little girl watching Encanto, right? And the kids dressed up as Elsa and things like that. I thought that was really, really nice because Disney is very much, and Walt set this, early on, Disney is very much about families as it is about the actual content and spending time with your loved ones. And I thought that was a really kind of cool way to incorporate the family along with Disney, because they do go hand in hand. I thought that was a nice little touch with this ad.
And I'm very curious to see how heavily now everything is going to be, especially with the merch with the upcoming D23 Expo. Because even though it would be in 2024, but it'll still heavily promote Disney 100, because I'm for sure that this is going to go beyond 2023. They usually do it between like an 18-month sort of time frame. So I'm for sure that they will definitely have specialty Disney 100 / Expo merch at this. And of course, and I still believe that Iger will be around within the company during that time. I really don't think, especially since he just released another letter to D23 members that I received today. I received 2 letters from Mr. Bob Iger because I'm a D23 member. So for him to now be back in the company and for the next D23 Expo to be on the horizon for next year. And any news he's going to want tied to his name. And he's going to know that all the fans are going to be giving him standing ovation and cheering. And when he steps out on stage. So I think his presence is going to be heavily at the Anaheim Convention Center for the next D23 Expo.
Oh, big time. I mean, look how people reacted to him being at Disneyland like a couple months ago. It was like unbelievable. It was like, you know, Return of the King, basically, right? All these fans were like wanting to take pictures with him and Daddy Josh. It was crazy. And I think he's a very popular figure. I mean, he really is, both with fans and with the cast. So I think he's going to want to be there and really make a big splash. Absolutely. And I think I still think he's probably going to extend his contract. I just think that what he has to accomplish in 2 years is hard to do in 2 years, and he can't leave before it's done. It would be irresponsible. So I think there might be some extension. I'm not saying he's going to be there for like another 5 or 6 years or anything crazy like that. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if with the 2 years comes, it's another year.
I actually banked on 5 years total from the time when he came back. So I would say maybe another 2 or 3 years, like after the Expo.
That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking too. Another 2 years, maybe, or maybe even a year and a half after or something. Yeah. But he's going to need a little more runway with this. I think this is a big job. The successor thing is so important, so vital.
That's going to be so crucial, because if this ends up another disaster, that's 2 disasters of picking of CEOs that's under his name. And he is not going to want a second repeat of what happened back in 2020. And he knows it may be unscathed within the Diz Twitter and the Disney community, but everybody knows, whether they want to admit it or not, he put Chapek in that awkward position when he stepped down, and he gave it to him when the pandy hit. So now it is now going to have to be him that's going to have to clean up all the damage that he initially started. I'm sorry, it is what it is.
No, it is. It is. And I think that if you were to talk to him privately, he would acknowledge that. I think he understands that. And I think that's a big part of the reason why he came back. I think there was a little bit of that like guilt factor. Like, yes. Oh man, I can't be responsible for destroying this beloved company. Like, I got to come back and fix it, you know? And also there's a huge legacy issue here for him personally that he's going to want to fix as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think he's a very smart guy. I think he'll get it done. Just fucking 2 years is not enough.
No, it's definitely not enough. That's why I personally feel 4 to 5 years altogether, from the time that he came back as CEO to the time when he appoints. I'm going to put my bet on Dana Walden. I don't know why. I just think I just think for some reason to have 2 people ahead of Disney Entertainment, and I just feel what better way, especially in the time era that we're in, for him to appoint the first ever female CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Who better to do it than Iger?
No, I think he would do something like that. Absolutely. And she's a very qualified individual. So yes, he's picking a woman. Yes, it would be the first female Disney CEO, but she is brilliant and she's definitely qualified for this job. So far, she's really impressed me.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that. And this is coming from me, and I'm for sure from everybody here on OG55. I don't care if you're male, if you're female, if you're white, black, brown, yellow, gray, red, I don't care. If you have the qualifications, then you're okay in my book. That's all I care about.
That's all I care about.
If you have the qualifications, more power to you.
I don't care if you're Na'vi, okay? And you know how to run the Walt Disney Company. You can do a good job. There you go. You have it. You got it. That's
in the words of the Na'vi, Sivako.
Exactly. I don't know what that means, but yes. Well, George, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on once again, talking shop with me, brother. It was a lot of fun. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23, which I promise you folks, there will be bigger and better content on the horizon for that channel. I'm starting to work on that process now, so just bear with me on that. But you can still check out my past videos on there as well. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You could check out the brand new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, you're not too long from now, you'll be recording.
I will.
With the Walk with Walt podcast.
I will. Yes, I got a double recording today as this video is being recorded right now.
Awesome. Check out that podcast. My sister is a part of that podcast, by the way.
Yes.
And so it's part of the family, and George is my family. So definitely support that podcast 1000%. Now also on Monday, just a programming reminder at 6:45 p.m. California time, George and Vash Guy, Dr. Dre, will be with us to discuss all kinds of stuff that day. I think we're talking the Union, Walt Disney World stuff. We're talking Zootopia, maybe coming into Animal Kingdom. We're talking Pandora and how it's impossible to fit a land in Disneyland, right? Right, George? Impossible.
It's impossible. You can't do it.
It's like having to reroute the rivers of America to do Galaxy's Edge. How the fuck would you do that? Oh, wait a minute.
It's done. It's done.
Exactly.
It's already in operation.
Right? Exactly. No, nothing's impossible. And that's what Walt Disney taught us, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing's impossible. But yeah, we're going to have a great time. 6:45 California time on Monday, tomorrow. Join us. Check out the Walk with Walt podcast. Mr. Family Man is a part of. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with everything, all your thoughts on Toontown delays, Indy refurb, Bob Iger, the Disney 100 advertisement today, everything that we talked about. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.